The cameras were flashing so bright that Sophie couldn't see anything. All she could hear was the crowd screaming her name and reporters shouting questions she didn't understand. Just 12 hours ago, she was cleaning hospital floors in her worn-out scrubs. Now, she was standing next to one of the richest men in America while he announced to the world that he was breaking off his engagement to marry her? Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Blackwood's voice boomed through the microphone, his hand squeezing hers tight. I'd like you to meet the woman who changed my life in just one car ride. But let me tell you how a girl who couldn't even afford a proper dinner ended up stealing a billionaire's heart and breaking the internet. Sophie Williams felt like her feet were going to fall off. She had been working for 16 straight hours. First at the hospital cleaning night shift, then rushing to her morning classes, and now she was running late for her afternoon job at the coffee shop. Her scrubs were wrinkled, her hair was falling out of its ponytail, and she was pretty sure she smelled like disinfectant and exhaustion. She checked her phone as she hurried down the busy street. 3 missed calls from her dad and a text that made her heart sink. Honey, the pharmacy says the insurance denied my prescription again. Don't worry about me. Focus on your studies. Love you. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Her dad had been in a wheelchair since a construction accident 5 years ago, and his medical bills kept piling up no matter how hard she worked. She was in her 2nd year of nursing school, hoping that one day she'd make enough money to give him the care he deserved. She wiped her eyes and opened her rideshare app. The car was supposed to be a black sedan, license plate ending in 847. She was so tired she could barely focus on the screen. When she saw a black car pull up, she didn't look twice. She just opened the door and collapsed into the back seat with a huge sigh of relief. Thank goodness, she mumbled, closing her eyes. I thought I was going to be late again. Can you please hurry? I really need this job. The car started moving, and Sophie finally looked around. Her tired brain slowly registered that something was very, very wrong. This wasn't a regular car. The seats were made of soft leather that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. There were crystal glasses and a minibar. The windows were tinted so dark she couldn't see outside. Excuse me, she called to the driver, her voice shaky. I think there's been a mistake. This doesn't look like a regular rideshare car. The driver, a professional-looking man in a black suit, glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Miss Victoria, Mr. Blackwood is expecting you at the party. We should arrive in 20 minutes. Victoria? No, Sophie panicked. My name's Sophie. This is all wrong. Please stop the car. But they were already on the highway, and the driver couldn't hear her properly through the partition. Her heart was racing. She tried to open the door, but they were going too fast. She was trapped in some stranger's fancy car, probably heading to some fancy place where she definitely didn't belong. She pulled out her phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The windows were so tinted and soundproof that even if she screamed, nobody would hear her. This is not happening. This cannot be happening on today of all days. 20 minutes later, the car stopped in front of the most expensive hotel Sophie had ever seen. Men in fancy suits were everywhere, and there were photographers behind red ropes. The driver came around to open her door. We've arrived, Miss Victoria. Please listen to me, Sophie begged. I'm not Victoria. There's been a huge mistake. I just got in the wrong car. But before she could explain more, a tall man in a perfect black tuxedo appeared at the car door. He had dark hair, sharp green eyes, and looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine. When he saw Sophie in her wrinkled scrubs instead of whoever he was expecting, his face showed complete shock. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice deep and confused. "I'm so sorry." Sophie scrambled out of the car, nearly tripping over her own feet. I'm Sophie Williams, and I accidentally got into your car thinking it was my rideshare. I know this looks really bad, but I swear I'm not some crazy person trying to crash your party or whatever this is." The man stared at her for a long moment. Around them, photographers were starting to notice the commotion. She could see people in expensive dresses and jewelry looking at her like she was some kind of alien. "You're not Victoria Ashford," he said slowly. "No, I'm definitely not Victoria anybody," Sophie said, her cheeks burning red. "I'm just a nursing student who makes terrible decisions when she's exhausted. If you could just point me toward the subway, I'll disappear and pretend this never happened." But instead of being angry, something strange happened. The man's serious expression softened, and he almost smiled. "You're a nursing student?" "Yes, sir. And I work 3 jobs, and I'm probably fired from one of them now because I'm late, and my dad needs his medicine, and—" Sophie realized she was rambling and stopped. "I'm sorry, you probably have important rich people things to do. I'll just go." She started to walk away, but the man caught her arm gently. "Wait," he said. "I'm Ethan Blackwood, and you just gave me the best idea I've had in years."
"1 hour," Ethan said. "Come to this party with me for 1 hour. Help me show my family that there are more important things in life than business deals and arranged marriages." In scrubs? Ethan looked around and spotted a hotel employee. "Excuse me, is the boutique still open?" 30 minutes later, Sophie was staring at herself in a mirror, not recognizing the person looking back at her. The hotel boutique had dressed her in a beautiful navy blue dress that fit her perfectly, styled her hair, and even done her makeup. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale. "I can't let you pay for all this," she said to Ethan, who was waiting outside the dressing room. "This dress probably costs more than I make in 3 months." "Sophie," Ethan said seriously, "in 1 hour, I'm supposed to announce my engagement to a woman I don't love to please parents who only care about money. You're giving me the courage to do something real for once in my life. Let me give you something in return." Sophie took a deep breath. 1 hour? 1 hour. And then I go back to my regular life? If that's what you want? Sophie looked at herself in the mirror one more time. When would she ever get another chance to see how the other half lived? "Okay," she said, "but if this goes badly, I'm blaming you." The ballroom was like something out of a movie. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, there were flowers everywhere, and everyone looked like they belonged in a fashion magazine. Sophie felt like she was going to throw up from nervousness. "Remember," Ethan whispered as they walked in, "you're here as my guest. Hold your head high. You belong here as much as anyone." But Sophie didn't feel like she belonged. The way people were staring at her, whispering behind her hands, made her want to run back to her regular life where she knew the rules. Then, she saw Victoria Ashford. Victoria was everything Sophie wasn't. Tall, blonde, with perfect makeup and a dress that probably cost more than Sophie's dad's medical bills. She was surrounded by a group of women who all looked exactly like her, and they were all staring at Sophie like she was some kind of bug. "Victoria, darling," Ethan's voice, like honey mixed with poison, called out. "Who is your, friend?" The whole ballroom seemed to go quiet. Sophie could feel hundreds of eyes on her, and she wanted to disappear. "Victoria," Ethan said calmly, "I'd like you to meet Sophie Williams. Sophie, this is Victoria Ashford." "How nice," Victoria said with a fake smile. "And what do you do, Sophie?" Sophie's mind went blank. She could lie, pretend to be someone important, but something about Victoria's snobby tone made her angry. "I'm a nursing student," Sophie said clearly. "I work 3 jobs to pay for school and take care of my disabled father. Tonight I got into the wrong car by accident, and Mr. Blackwood was kind enough to invite me to stay." The silence that followed was so complete that Sophie could hear her own heartbeat. Then, slowly, whispers started spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Victoria's fake smile disappeared completely. "How interesting." "Ethan, perhaps we should discuss our announcement privately." But Ethan stepped closer to Sophie, putting his arm around her waist in a gesture that made the whispers turn into gasps. "Actually, Victoria," he said in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "I've been thinking about our announcement, and I've realized something important." Sophie's heart stopped. This was not part of the 1-hour plan. "What I've realized," Ethan continued, looking straight at Sophie, "is that I don't want to marry someone because our parents think it's good business. I want to marry someone who makes me want to be a better person. Someone who works 3 jobs and still finds time to care for her father. Someone real." The ballroom erupted. People were shouting, cameras were flashing, and Sophie felt like she was in the middle of a tornado. "I need to leave," Sophie whispered to Ethan, pulling on his arm. "This is insane. You just destroyed your engagement for someone you met an hour ago." "Best decision I ever made." Ethan grinned like he'd just won the lottery. "Your family is going to disown you." "They might." You look like she wants to murder me." "She probably does." "The photographers are taking pictures of everything." "Good. Let the whole world see what choosing happiness looks like." But Sophie wasn't ready for the whole world to see anything. She was just a nursing student who got into the wrong car. She didn't sign up to be the girl who broke up a billionaire's engagement. She had to go. And before Ethan could stop her, she was running through the crowd in her fancy dress and uncomfortable shoes. She made it to the lobby before Ethan caught up with her. "Sophie, wait! This is crazy." She turned around, tears streaming down her face. "You don't even know me. What if I'm a terrible person? What if I'm only nice because I want your money? What if you're exactly what you seem to be? What if you're the first real person I've met in 10 years? What if I'd rather take a chance on something real than spend my life in a fake marriage for my parents' business deals?" Sophie stared at him. "You really just threw away your entire life for someone you met in a car?" "No, I think I just found my life." And then, right there in the hotel lobby, with photographers still snapping pictures through the windows, he kissed her. Sophie woke up the next morning to her phone buzzing non-stop. She had 847 missed calls, 2,156 text messages, and when she opened social media, she nearly fainted. Hashtag Billionaire Cinderella was trending worldwide. There were pictures everywhere. Her getting out of the limo in her scrubs, her in the blue dress at the party, the moment Ethan announced he was choosing her over Victoria, their kiss in the lobby. The headlines were insane. Mystery girl steals billionaire's heart. From scrubs to riches, the engagement party scandal. Who is Sophie Williams, the nursing student who broke the internet? Her phone rang again. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello? Is this Sophie Williams, the girl from last night? This is Jennifer Martinez from Good Morning America. We'd love to have you on the show to tell your story." Sophie hung up immediately, but the phone rang again and again and again. News vans were parked outside her tiny apartment building. Reporters were trying to interview her neighbors. Someone had found out about her dad's medical condition and was asking questions about their finances. This was her worst nightmare. She was hiding under her blankets when someone knocked on her door. She ignored it, but the knocking continued. "Sophie," it was Ethan's voice. "I know you're in there. We need to talk." She opened the door a crack. "How did you get past the reporters?" "Back entrance. Can I come in?" Her apartment was tiny and shabby compared to the world he came from, but Ethan didn't seem to notice. He sat on her old couch like it was perfectly normal. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Am I okay?" Sophie laughed, but it sounded a little crazy. "I'm internet famous for getting into the wrong car. Reporters are asking my neighbors about my dad's disability checks. I have 17 job interview requests and 43 marriage proposals from complete strangers. So no, I'm not okay."
"I'm sorry," Ethan said quietly. "I didn't think about what this would do to your life." "What about your life? Did your parents disown you?" Ethan's smile was grim. "They're threatening to cut off my trust fund and kick me out of the company unless I apologize to Victoria and marry her within the month." Sophie felt like she was going to be sick. "Ethan, you have to do it. You can't throw away your entire future for someone you barely know." "What if I want to?"
What if you regret it? They stared at each other across her tiny living room, and Sophie realized that sometime in the last 24 hours, she had fallen completely in love with this crazy, wonderful man who gave up everything for a chance at something real. But love wasn't enough to pay her dad's medical bills, or finish nursing school, or survive in a world where reporters followed your every move. The next few days were a blur of madness. Sophie couldn't leave her apartment without being mobbed by photographers. Someone leaked her class schedule, so she couldn't go to school. Her coffee shop job fired her because reporters kept bothering customers asking about the billionaire's girlfriend. Worse, the attention was affecting her dad. His nursing home was being harassed by journalists, wanting to know about Sophie's tragic backstory. The stress was making his condition worse. "Honey," her dad said when she visited him, "maybe you should disappear for a while. Go stay with your aunt in Oregon until this dies down." "I can't leave you, Dad." "And I can't watch you destroy your life because you got into the wrong car. That boy seems nice, but you live in different worlds. Sometimes love isn't enough." That night, Sophie made the hardest decision of her life. She was going to disappear. She was packing her few belongings when Ethan showed up at her door again, this time looking like he hadn't slept in days. "You're leaving," he said, seeing the suitcase. "This isn't working," Sophie said, not meeting his eyes. "The reporters, the attention, what it's doing to my dad, I can't handle this life." "What if we could change it?" "How? Your family wants you to marry Victoria. My life is falling apart. The whole world is watching us, waiting for this fairy tale to crash and burn." Ethan sat down heavily on her couch. "My parents gave me an ultimatum. Marry Victoria and come back to the family business, or lose everything and be cut off forever." Sophie's heart broke. "Then you have to choose your family. What if I choose something else entirely?" He pulled out his phone and showed her a document. "I've been working with lawyers for the past 3 days. I'm liquidating my trust fund." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm turning all my money into cash and starting a foundation. The Sophie Williams Foundation for Medical Debt Relief." Sophie stared at him. "You're giving away your fortune?" "I'm investing it in something that matters. Your story, our story. It's shown me how many families are struggling with medical bills they can't afford. What if we could help them?" "Ethan, you can't give up being rich for me." "I'm not giving it up for you," he said softly. "I'm giving it up for us, for the chance to build something real together, something that helps people like your dad." Sophie started crying. "Your family will never forgive you." "Maybe not, but I'd rather have a real life with you than a fake life with their approval." "What if we fail?" "What if we succeed?" 6 months later, Sophie was standing in front of another crowd of photographers, but this time she wasn't running away. She was wearing a simple white dress, not a wedding dress. They decided to wait until the media attention died down. And Ethan was beside her, in a regular suit, not a tuxedo. They were announcing the first recipients of the Sophie Williams Foundation grants. "Today, we're proud to help 50 families pay off their medical debt. Families like mine, who shouldn't have to choose between medical care and financial survival." The foundation had raised over $10 million in its first 6 months, half from Ethan's trust fund, half from donations that poured in after their story went viral. Turns out, a lot of people were inspired by someone choosing love over money. Sophie had finished nursing school with the help of a scholarship the foundation created. Her dad's medical bills were completely paid off, and he was getting the best care available. She was working part-time at a clinic that served low-income families, and part-time running the foundation with Ethan. "We've learned that real wealth isn't about money. It's about the impact you make and the people you love," Ethan said, taking the microphone. After the press conference, they walked hand in hand through the park where they had their first real date, after the whole engagement party disaster. "Do you ever regret it, giving up your old life?" Ethan stopped walking and turned to face her. "The old life where I was engaged to someone I didn't love, working for parents who only cared about profit, surrounded by people who only wanted to use me?" "When you put it that way." "Sophie Williams," he said, getting down on one knee, right there in the middle of the park, "I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me for real this time? Not for the cameras or the business deals, but because I can't imagine my life without you." Sophie started crying happy tears. "Yes, you crazy billionaire, yes." As he slipped the ring on her finger, a simple band, not the massive diamond his mother had insisted Victoria should have, Sophie realized that getting into the wrong car had been the most right thing she'd ever done. The wedding was small and private, held in the garden of her dad's new accessible home, purchased by the foundation. There were no photographers except the ones they hired, no reporters, no society page coverage. Just family, real friends, and the 50 families they'd helped, all celebrating love that chose authenticity over obligation. Sophie's wedding dress was beautiful but simple. Her dad walked her down the aisle in his wheelchair, tears of joy streaming down his face. His parents hadn't come. They were still furious about the embarrassment he had caused the family. But his sister was there, and she told Sophie quietly that she was proud of her brother for choosing happiness. Victoria had married someone else within 6 months, another arranged business deal that made all the society pages. She seemed happy enough in the pictures, but Sophie sometimes wondered if she ever thought about what real love might feel like. As they exchanged vows, Sophie thought about that exhausted girl in scrubs who got into the wrong car 2 years ago. She'd been so worried about being late for work, so stressed about her dad's medical bills, so tired from working 3 jobs just to survive. Now she was marrying the love of her life, her dad was healthy and cared for, and together they were helping hundreds of families avoid the financial nightmare she'd lived through. "Do you take this woman to be your wife, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer?" the minister asked Ethan. "I definitely take her for poorer," he said with a grin, making everyone laugh. "We've gotten pretty good at that part." "And do you, Sophie, take this man to be your husband, even though he gave away his trust fund for you?" "Especially because he gave away his trust fund. That's how I knew he was serious." When they kissed, the small crowd cheered, and someone shouted, "Best wrong car ever." Later, at the reception, Sophie's dad made a toast. "My daughter always said she wanted to help people. She became a nurse to heal people's bodies, but what she really healed was a young man's heart, and in doing that, she found a way to heal the world one family at a time."